Siobhan, and hello everyone. My name's Darren Burrowes. I'm the Chief Technology Officer at BlueZone Group, and which is a great role. And I guess that's one of the good things about starting your own company. You can create your own role. So I get to know less and less about more and more. So it's a fun role in technology. And I apologise for my wife, Kailani Burrowes. She wanted to be here too, and it would have been great to hear her point of view on the whole startup story and the way we've developed the company. As you might know, she's chair of 1804, which is the other co-working space just across town, focusing on clean tech and smart cities startups. But I'm sure you'll catch her in an event around town. She's had a lot of things. I also wanted to say that in terms of the BlueZone Group, it's 100% Australian owned. There's two families, the Burrowes family, Gunilla and myself, and the Hodges family, Neil and Yvette. And Neil and I are the executive managers, if you like. I'm the Chief Technology Officer, he's the Chief Executive Officer. So it's a completely 50-50 arrangement. You don't see that a lot in business, apart from some high-profile exceptions, the Atlassian guys, they're called co-CEOs. But I think it's a great model, and I'm surprised that you don't see more of it, because it's a really powerful model when you've got a high-trust environment. 1 + 1 definitely equals 3. You can get a lot more done. Neil focuses on the finance and administration, corporate governance, day-to-day operations, and I focus more on the technology and the marketing aspects of the company. So this is what I'll be talking about today. I'll talk a bit about the BlueZone Group because we are quite a niche, so you need to understand that, I think, to make sense of what I'm saying, our journey in startup and challenges and opportunities for the future. So the first company we started was ATSA Defence Services. It originally was Advanced Technology Systems Australia, which was quite a mouthful. Then we just went to the acronym. And now, in fact, we're about to retire that brand. We started it up in 2000, primarily as a service partner for Saab underwater systems out of Sweden. At that time, there were 6 ships built in Newcastle from 1994 to 2000, 6 Minehunter coastal ships. Fiberglass ships they were, so they were plastic ships built in a steel city, which is somewhat incongruous. And Saab supplied one of the systems. It was an underwater system, the remotely operated vehicle you see down in the bottom right-hand corner. So the 6 ships operate 14 of these vehicles. Each one's worth more than probably $1 million in today's dollars to replace. So it's a high technology piece of equipment. It's off board of the ship. It's a harsh environment. And we provide the service. You can see the guys servicing the equipment there. So there's lots of technology packed into that system, and it's like aerospace levels of service. If we get something wrong, nobody dies like in aerospace, but it's definitely a mission failure. The ship has to return to port. So we definitely try to service at that very top level. So at that time when those ships built, the federal government policy was about Australian industry capability, building up Australian industry. And that wheel has come a complete circle. It went through a period where it was buy the cheapest equipment that you can, and that ended up with ships being bought out of Spain and not much opportunity for local industry. Now the wheel has swung back, so I'm a huge supporter of that. And because of that policy, Saab built the equipment here in Australia, so we were able to go and see the equipment getting built in the factory at DY, talk to the engineers, our technicians to their technicians. It's a very powerful way to transfer that technology. So their engineers would say, oh yeah, you see it's built like that now, but here's the 10 ways that didn't work. You just learn so much at that face-to-face level. So I'm a huge fan of that, both for it's a win-win. The Navy gets local support, we get to create the company, an exciting and interesting company, and Saab gets their equipment cared for by somebody who's really interested. So we're a service organisation, and the key part about service is that it's measured at the time of delivery. If we both order a steak, you might say your medium rare steak is not medium rare, I might say it's perfect, but if the waiter is late or gets the order wrong, that service, everyone's can tell when service is bad. So getting service right is a big part of our culture, and that's built into the culture now, and that customer focus. That's because we started up in that right from the start. So we wanted to be more than just guys with pointy nose pliers and Phillips head screwdrivers fixing things. We always wanted to be bigger than that, and so we've built into an engineering company as we've gone. I think we're disciples of Jim Collins. His books are Good to Great and I forget what the second one's called, but he says you need three things in business: passion for what you're doing. You need to be passionate about it because you're going to come across a lot of roadblocks on your way. So the only way you can punch through those is complete passion for what you're doing. And our passion was this equipment working at sea. That's as simple as it is. So I'm ex-Navy myself. Neil, my partner's ex-Navy, so we'd been at sea with equipment not working, and it's a very difficult situation. So that's our passion. You have to be world class at what you do, and we are world class at this service in our geographic location. And I think we do it a lot better than some of the other bigger companies might have done it because it was our key thing. Saab has asked us a couple of times to make proposals for support centres around the world, and we've done that, so we know we're at the top of our game. And you need to have an economic engine. You need to be able to make a buck out of it. And this is a very good niche. Defence is a very good business to get into because there are high barriers to entry. So once you're in it, so there's some very good niches in there. So we had a lot of attempts to grow out of that niche. Niche is like a two-edged sword. If you're a one-trick pony and the game changes, somebody moves your cheese, then you're in trouble. So we tried partnering for commercialization. So we've been to a couple of universities and attempted to take technologies they'd developed out of the lab and into the marketplace, which is a big, hard step that is generally not very well appreciated. How hard that is. And I remember, and it's very difficult for a small business to fit that role. I remember one meeting we had with a large university down in Sydney, big tower, big glass windows, marble table, talking about negotiating this IP out of the university. 5 of them on that side, me on the other side. It was never going to work. And until there's more incentive for universities to move it out, I think it's going to be very, very difficult. Then we tried product innovation. We tried to develop our own product, and I'll touch on that a little bit later, but that is a very long road. You have to get the product right, the market has to be there, and hitting those things all together is difficult. And then we hit on the idea of an acquisition, and we acquired UVS, originally founded in 1973 as Underwater Video Systems. When putting cameras underwater was a really clever thing. Before that, it was all divers. So, in fact, they were pioneers introducing that equipment into the Bass Strait, where Australia's oil and gas capability started. UVS has since moved to Perth, so now we have offices in Melbourne, Perth and Newcastle. And what UVS gave us was a very strong sales organisation, over 50 representations, so representing products into Australia to the Australian market. And they're quite sophisticated products. Anything that goes under the water has to be exactly right. So it's a business-to-business market, and lots of technologies and lots of interesting things. And again, they were doing application engineering, so that fit with what we were already doing in Newcastle. So together, those two companies are now the BlueZone Group, and with our locations, 3 locations, and we're in diverse markets, which is just a big part about our model, being in multiple markets. Offshore oil and gas is very quiet at the moment with oil down at $40 a barrel, who would have thunk, but luckily defence has just come back. And all the other markets are also associated with underwater and underwater technology, and it's a model that works for Australia. We've made a sideways step into water infrastructure. Again, it's about putting electronic equipment underwater, and we're inventing a new product. We have invented and brought to market a new product called the Sewer Serpent, which is a way to find leaks in sewer pipelines. It's not glamorous, but there is a huge installed infrastructure, water infrastructure. All cities around the world have the same problem with ageing infrastructure, how to inspect it and how to maintain it. So we're making some headway in introducing new technologies into this market. But I guess my reflection on that is that you don't just do startup once, you keep starting up. And this is a startup for us, it's a new market. The people talk a different language. As a small company, you don't bring any references with you from the other market. The people in water infrastructure don't know anything about defence and our credibility there. So it's quite difficult to move across these multiple markets. So you need to keep at it for some time. And the reason that we're here is our workspace in the ocean. Over 71% of the surface of the globe is water. It's the largest active carbon sink on Earth, and the underwater technology tools that we develop, maintain and engineer give us the tools to manage and utilise those resources. And if you look at Australia's claims over land area compared with our sea claims, because you can claim a 200 kilometre limit around all the land we own, Heard Island, Macquarie Island, Antarctica, much bigger claims over sea areas. So Australia is a maritime nation, and the ocean and the sea will become more and more important for food. It's the source of the world's weather, understanding what's going on in the ocean. And you know, the moon is mapped to centimetre accuracy, and I think Mars might be too. The deep ocean has been visited by a handful of people. It's really, really unknown. The Malaysian MH370 flight that went down in the Southern Ocean, they discovered new tectonic plate joins in the seafloor there that weren't known. So that's how unknown the whole ocean is. We were involved a little bit in that project because when the ships came in from the search activity, they needed repair over the weekend and they'd go back out on a Monday. So it was our workshops there that were doing that activity. So our startup journey, just some slides, some pictures reflecting back on the way it was back in 2000. Top left, that just reminds me of the empty workshop. There was nothing there. There was 2 guys on a mobile phone, and I think the toolkit we borrowed from somebody. And you just have to do what you have to do to get it started. But and in that case, we're breaking down. I personally was breaking down that winch platform. It was all rusted and corroded, and it was a lot of hard work. I was back on the tools. It was very dangerous to have an electrical engineer back on the tools. The most dangerous phase of the company's progress. The second picture, there's Neil at sea in Storm Bay in Tasmania. Very cold down there, but there we got a gig training the Navy. So really we bit off more than we could chew, but as a small business and a startup, you have to bite off more than you can chew and keep chewing. The next picture, that's the workshops in DY where the Double Eagle was built, and I talked about that before, about being able to talk engineer to engineer. The next shot is a couple of Swedes on trials with us down in Sydney. And I suppose I wanted to comment on the cultural difference with Sweden. That was really interesting to experience. They take quite a long time to make a decision, very consensus driven. There's like the formal decision network that everybody can see with all the managers, and then there's an informal one around the water cooler, and that happens a lot. And a lot of the decisions are made around the water cooler, and the formal meeting around the big table is just to confirm what you already agreed around the water cooler about the way you should go. It's amazing. But once they do get to a decision, boy, do they stick to it. They got a backbone of iron, and that was really important to us in the early days because they picked us as their support partner, and that put some noses out of joint in defence because we've got a lot of big players in defence who thought they should be doing it, but Saab said, no, this is the way it's going to be. And that was, well, it was a very exciting time for us. We didn't know whether we'd be starting or not, but luckily the Swedes stood behind us all the way. Our first service there on the left, how some of the equipment is treated, you can't really see it, but there's an electronic part, that winch drum's all bent, so there's opportunity in that when things get bent and broken. Making our own benches, so we innovated in the whole service model. I remember when we started, we got these documents from Saab about the system. One half was in English, one half was in Swedish, and the other half was in Swedish. It was kind of English, and that was about how to build the system, but nothing about taking it apart, testing it, and rebuilding it. So we had to develop all that for ourselves, the hardware and the whole process around that. And then the successes you get, that's us on trials down in Sydney with a very happy customer at that time. So innovation as a process, we've always been interested in innovation and we kept at it. Our R&D investment is above 9% of turnover. But you do need an engineering model for execution. You have to follow through and execute. I said before about following your passion. Well, not to this extent. The taxidermy beer hats just aren't going to sell. You do need the market contact. You have to check with the market what they want. And a lot of technical inventions miss that. A good part about being a small business is that you can tolerate risk a lot better. You're a lot closer to the customer and the market, so you have a lot better understanding of what the risk might be, and you can make a decision quicker to do something. And I think that's the benefit that SMEs bring to the whole innovation ecosystems. They can do things quicker, and they've got that strong market contact from the owners straight to the market. Of course, SMEs, small businesses, don't have the resources to do really big projects, but they've got that innovative streak in them. And this quote is from Scott Adams, the author of the Dilbert series, who was a systems engineer, well, still is, I guess. Once you are, you always are. He says a spectacular system beats passion every time. So you need passion, but you also need a system. But you need a spectacular system, not an average system, not a good enough system. That's bureaucracy. You need a spectacular system, because every time you run the system, that's a success. And the system can be improved, the system gives you feedback. So that's my strong belief, that the system, you have to get the system working, and you've got to just keep running it and keep improving it. Our journey with Saab, I've said we started with process innovation service, so we did training for Navy. The picture on the top right, it's dated now, but it's a simple picture, but they did everything they said they'd do on that picture, on that one slide. So we were there in 1990 when we started. They built that vehicle in the centre. They're still the only ones with that type in the world, and they built that vehicle that's just coming in as a shadow. It was just a thought bubble. So it's just amazing to see that persistence and the persistence on the main goals. So I call this our beats model. So rather than building whole products, we've concentrated on building components that go with the mother system. So you can see this a somewhat dated announcement now back in 2014, but Apple acquired Beats for $3.2 billion. I would have thought Apple could design and build headphones. Why the hell did they do that? Because Beats had something that Apple wanted. I guess it was the cool factor or something in the value chain that Beats had built. So there's space for finding your place in the value chain is the place where you can find your place to your economic engine. And in our case, we built this new type of underwater connector to connect to the vehicle. The supplier is actually in Scotland. The customer is in Sweden, almost next door, and we're building the product here in Australia. Because Saab can't think of everything, we thought of it, we took the risk, we built it. And I remember when we told the idea to Saab, they were going, oh, we don't think that's a very good idea, but we built it anyhow. And when they came out and saw it, they wanted it. So they sell it back to their customers now. So that's a really cool innovation. So it's not really about geography, it's about seeing the value, seeing the market, taking the risk and creating the value. Some of the other products we did, a new type of portable operator control board that Curtis is holding there. He was a graduate from the Uni of Newcastle, and he's been with us for more than 10 years now. The engineers love the work there. It's exciting, it's interesting. I remember we had a management consultant come in and he said, you guys don't need a theme of the month club because the work is its own reward. Engineers and technical people love fixing things and building things. This was our attempt at product development. So we decided to build a small autonomous underwater vehicle, and we got it going. So it could do a 500 metre mission and return to within 25 metres of the start point. But when we looked around at the market had passed us by. Other people had got things going quicker. So the market really wasn't there, and we had to bin that project. We learn a lot, but experience is a great teacher, but the lessons can be very expensive. So we spent quite a lot of hours on that and didn't get the product sold. The engineers did learn a lot, and they've gone on to use that. And the thing about engineering is you can't switch it on and off. If you're not engineering for a customer, you need to be engineering for yourself on internal projects. So in some ways, I think that's inevitable. And this is where Ganilla's work would have fit in on underwater swarm networks. This would have been the vehicle that we would have swarmed in the ocean, and her PhD research on that would have made this capability possible. People are still working on that, and it's starting to happen now. Perhaps we're ahead of our time in what we were trying to do. So it's said that the driver for innovation in the future will be collaboration. Jeff Julian said this. He was Director of Creative Innovation at the Uni of Newcastle. So this is our collaboration story. We collaborated with a small company called Subtrench and built these two subsea trenches. One of them went to a wind farm in the Netherlands, and one of them went to St. Petersburg Harbour in Russia, trenching across the harbour, laying a communications cable. It's interesting with the second one, the software was done here in Newcastle. The electronics cans, you can just see them in the middle of the vehicle there. They were built in Perth, where there's a lot of capability for that kind of engineering. And the vehicle itself was built in Singapore, where the labour rates are low. So the IP, the smart stuff, was done in Australia, and the construction was done in Singapore, and then the vehicle was shipped to Russia. This is our local innovation story, where we collaborated with RPC Technologies, who are a composites company, E3K, who are designers, and Elemental Energy Technologies, who had this idea for a marine turbine. So generating power from moving currents in the ocean, tidal changes, and rivers. And at the time that they came to us, they had an inventor and they had a whiteboard, and every time he came into the meeting room, he would sketch something different on the whiteboard. So our role was really to get one idea out of him and get it built and get it tested, and we did that over about a 2-year period, and we got an National Engineering Excellence Award for that. So that was really great to be a part of that. Now we're suppliers to this company, we're suppliers to Biopower, who are putting wave energy projects in off Victoria, and Carnegie Wave Energy, who are grid connected off Perth, generating power from waves and connecting it into the national grid there. This is a story that started with the marketing department at Optus. In fact, it was Saatchi, the marketers for Optus, they said, or some marketing graduate said, wouldn't it be cool if there was a buoy that floated off a beach and it could detect sharks and tell people to get out of the water? They sold that idea to Optus, who wanted to have some competition for Telstra on the beach. Telstra was sponsoring surf life saving at that time. And we took that idea again, basically from whiteboard to a product in 12 weeks. So that was a very interesting product. Still a lot of work to go to make that product right. The company that owns the IP has gone on to float on the stock market and raise $7 million. So I'm still hopeful that they'll find a way forward. It's a very tough market, but I think there's going to be increasing numbers of human shark interactions. The shark population's coming back, and we really need to do something beyond aerial patrols and nets. This is a super interesting technology out of a company called Liquid Robotics out of Silicon Valley, called the Wave Glider. The unit that you can see on the surface is the size of a large surfboard, about 3 meters long, and the subunit under the water is what drives the vehicle. So they use the wave motion on the surface to move the wings that you can see on the subunit, and so that subunit drags the top unit through the water at about 2 knots. So it's not fast, but the energy is free. The first time I saw it, I said, that will never work in the ocean. It's much too flimsy. It shows you what I know about ocean technology. They launched 2 in San Francisco. They went via Hawaii and arrived at Bundaberg in Queensland almost a year later, covering 9,000 miles and setting a world record for an autonomous crossing. So this is the kind of autonomy and robotics that is coming to the ocean. And Liquid Robotics are all about persistent, ubiquitous sensing of the ocean and what's going on in the ocean. So very exciting to work with these guys. Because they're out of Silicon Valley, they've got a real mindset that's amazing. It's amazing to be around them and to be with them and to see how they approach business. Very exciting. We've done our beats model again, so it's about turning the handle on the system again and building components that go with their system. So the idea is that these components will go back into their standard price lists and will be selling globally like they do. Again, we've innovated in service, building a service capability for these Doppler logs, which are at the bottom right there. And that's the first service centre outside of Teledyne in the US who make this product. Teledyne's a big US company with a lot of technologies, but dragging that capability out of them, dragging that know-how out of them, not easy. You know, you really have to know what you're looking for. Because even when you go there and you talk to them, you go, well, this test rig, you know, we'll need one of those. Have you got the drawings for it? Oh, you know, Joe or Dave did that. He's not with us anymore. I don't know where the drawings are. You know, companies lose that intellectual property. So there's a chance to reinvent it here in Australia. It's a win-win. Local customers get local support. When we're selling Teledyne instruments, we can offer local support. So, you know, that kind of innovation really can help sales. So our challenges and opportunities for the future, there's an upgrade for the Double Eagle system coming, so that's the biggest thing on our horizon. We really want to win that upgrade and have that system at sea for another 15 years. The ships will be around till 2035. Thales is reopening the shipyard at Carrington, so hopefully we're going to see more work out of that shipyard too. On the left is what we call the Kailani Telemetry Boy for Navy. We're building this buoy because they've got a special purpose to collect special data. We couldn't find the exact right thing after a global search, so we're building that, and hopefully we'll have a new product, and this time we've got a launch customer, and then we can take the product to the world. On the right there you can see the guys with an autonomous boat, a small boat. So we showed this at an Army Innovation Day. Last people I would have thought that would be interested in boats. We showed that in November, and in May they ordered 3, which is just astounding for Defence to move that quickly. If they like what they see on trials, we think they're going to order more, and they've got ideas for bigger ones, so very exciting project. And Saab has an autonomous target. Remember I showed you that pictures of the 3 vehicles that they were building into the future, and this is one of them. They're still the world leader in that, and Defence is possibly going to acquire that. So in conclusion, we're big on skills development, both for our own staff and encouraging STEM into high schools, and we get high school students into build your own ROV. So they take a week and they build it with the technicians on the shop floor. The kids love it, the technicians love it. We also host engineering interns, and we've put all our apprentices through locally, and we'll be starting more in the new year. Been looking at 3D printing for a long time now, and finally taken the jump, and we've got this 3D printer that can print in engineering plastics, which is just great for the subsea application. In fact, we got a grant from the West Australian state government, so that sits in our Perth office. The engineers here just upload to a website. The engineers in Perth just make sure it's got the right materials in it and press the go button. So that's ideal for short run, high value kind of work that we do. And the innovation, the hardware innovation is going to become, or is becoming, what software innovation has been for a number of years. It's much faster to prototype and build hardware, and even build production components with this kind of technology. Gunilla and I have always been interested in angel investment. We started an angel investment group called Wrights House here in the Hunter, and we're also associated with the Hunter Angels, and we've made a number of investments. We haven't had that spectacular Google exit yet, but we're hopeful, very hopeful with this one, which is from Chord. It's a type of control for any harsh application where you don't want to use a keyboard. And the way it works is like music chords, so you push different buttons in different orders to get the effect. So very easy and fast to train people. Originally it came out of a subsea application from Australian Institute for Marine Science, but the latest applications are for rifle control up on the barrel of the rifle. So that's really it from me. I like this quote: if you change your tools, you change the world. So new tools give you new ways to measure, manage and interact with the world. And our key role is introducing robotics into the RAN, the Royal Australian Navy, the Z-boat, autonomous underwater vehicles, and the wave glider, kind of sea to space communication there. So it's a very interesting and exciting field. Robotics and autonomy really makes sense in the ocean, where it's really expensive to put ships and people into the ocean. A big ship, no matter how capable, can only be one place at one time. You hear a lot about aerial drones, and they're revolutionising stuff on land, but the sea is a much bigger place, and everything under the sea is covert. You don't know where it is. So this ubiquitous sort of robotics technology is coming to the ocean in a lot of ways. And our company is part of that, and we got our start out of a defence project. And I think, my comment on that is that out of every defence project, we should be looking at a startup business. It's a lot of money. Defence is a big high technology buyer, and I would like to be able to point to lots of other companies that started up out of defence projects. That'd be very exciting too. Thank you very much.
Has anyone got any questions for Darren?
Yeah, the
company out of the US, you said, very exciting to do with the wave blower.
Yeah.
And their approach to things is different.
Yeah.
Can you explain how it's different?
Well, in ocean science, people tend to want to own their own instrument, and they're very conservative about how they approach it. But the wave glider people they want to sell hundreds. We're just going to have hundreds of these out there sending data back to shore, and instrumenting the ocean is their vision. So they're really thinking big about that, and about how that might happen. It hasn't happened as fast as what they thought, but they are exciting to be around. James Gosling, the father of Java, is on their staff, so they really think big about the software and how the software might work in the future. They're thinking sea to space communications, because the glider's on the surface, so it can communicate underwater and then to the satellites and then back to shore. In defence terms, these things are very hard to detect, so ubiquitous ocean sensing. So, just a fun company to be around.
To build on Josh's question, do you think that's one of the characteristics of the entrepreneurial culture in America? They just start by thinking big, whereas perhaps here in Australia we kind of operate at a smaller scale?
Yeah, perhaps it is. They work hard too, and they sell globally. They've got a big home market, I guess, but they do sell globally too, very quickly. All the companies we know there are outward looking, selling their gear globally. Yeah, perhaps you have to look for those bigger markets. It's nice to have a big home market, but it's good to sell globally too.
You talked a little bit about the difference in decision making in Sweden.
Yeah.
And you also touched on how they work differently in Silicon Valley.
Yeah.
What's the difference in Silicon Valley that really stood out for you?
Well, in Silicon Valley and in America, you can find that very much sales-driven culture. Make these sales or you'll be sacked, kind of thing. And some of the conversations are around the Americans saying to us, you guys need to get a salesperson and they need to have a quota, and if they don't get it, then you need to let them go and get somebody else. You need somebody hungrier. You need someone knocking on doors again and again and again. And we're saying, well, in the ocean, it doesn't work like that. It's a B2B sale. People know what they want. There's the internet. They study these things. It's a different model. And the sales process can be very complex. Some starts with application engineering, or could we do this? Then pricing that, then going and talking to them, and then going around again. Our technicians might go out there, like the whole company's involved. So Neil and I are very much about the team effort on the thing, the soccer team model. Not everyone can be a forward and score the goals, but you need the back line and the goal stop. And with Saab, they definitely understand that longer term model, and we'll appreciate, how long some things take to mature, sales take to mature.
What do you appreciate about the Australian startup culture that's different from Sweden or?
If you look at the two cultures, the Swedes are right down at the feminine end of culture, very consultative and consensus driven, and Australians are right at the other end, get the bloody job done and get back and have a beer kind of thing. And if you can get the best out of those, I think that can be a good match. Once they came out from Sweden in like February to do trials at Port Stephens, they hadn't bought sunscreen, they hadn't bought hats. They just like, guys, what were you thinking? Australians are very much more outcome driven. So we can be a good match at times, and at times it can be a bit frustrating. Yeah.
Have you ever been, you spoke about how you kept starting up?
Yeah.
That be new products or diversifying or whatever it might be.
Yeah.
Have you ever been approached to be acquired, and were you tempted to exit?
Yeah, a couple of times, but the planets haven't aligned. But I think the best way to generate that exit opportunity is just to be a great business. So we just pretty much focus on that. We're aware of who might be interested, but we don't kind of run our business around it. Right now we're working on building the next level of management, so that the company can continue. And we're very proud that we acquired UVS and gave that company a continuation path. The owner was retiring. So, it's a great story when that all fits together.
You've got like a broad range of interests. How do you make your investment decisions around like what you go into next and the thought path?
Yeah, bulk sat analysis, bunch of guys sitting around a table. And I don't know, it's hard. We could see water infrastructure was big. We could see that the whole industry was focused around cameras and putting cameras in pipelines. And we could see that there was more and more players fighting over the same rice bowl. So we thought, well, maybe we could get another rice bowl or make the bowl bigger, make the pie bigger with new technologies, digital technology, smart city stuff. So that is very exciting, seeing what works in oil and gas that might work in water infrastructure, that might work in defence, and going between the markets and seeing how that might work. So yeah, I guess that's one of our strengths, because you don't often find, as we go globally, the people that I can think of in the US or in Europe, they might just sell to oceanographic, just people doing work, just scientists doing work in the oceans. They don't necessarily do defence. Oh, defence, what's that, So Australia's got Australian engineers and Australian people generally are generalists. In America you can find a lot more stovepiping. I'm just the engineer that looks at the flight controls. I don't know anything about the landing gear. You can find that a lot. So that generalist model can be very powerful, I think, and looking between markets. Yeah, and a lot of fun too.
Might wrap it up. We're nearly at the hour.
Okay.
So, Darren, are you able to hang around for a
Yeah, for sure. Yeah,
Thank
no
you
problem.
so much for your amazing journey.
Thanks very much. Thanks.